Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of Educator Yarns. Today I'm joined by Sue Currell, and before I introduce her, I am just going to say an acknowledgement of country. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we are gathered on today and pay my respects to elders both past and present, as well as acknowledging any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander listeners who are tuning in. And before I jump into asking Sue some questions about her pedagogy and practice, I'm going to read her bio. So Sue serves as one of the 2 early childhood teachers at a charming rural kindergarten in Cobden, Victoria. The kindergarten is one of 7 services managed by the local government shire. Coromite Shire, I think it is. This year, she is responsible for a vibrant group of 12 children. 9 are in their first year of kindergarten and 3 are in their preschool year. Her group named oh gosh, Sue, you're going to have to help me with this.
Yeah, so the name of the group is Narang, which means sun in our local Koori language. So we've got the Narang room and the Minkgill room. And the name was established before I started. So I've been at this kinder for this will be my 3rd year. So I've done 2 full years and a half year as well. So we have got 16 children in our group. 8 are in their 2nd year of kindergarten, so they'll be off to school next year. And we've got 8 children in their 1st year of kinder.
Okay, perfect. What a beautiful name as well. And what's the meaning of the other group that you have?
So Minkgill is star. And I don't know if you know the book written by Fiona Clark. So it's Minkgill Chases a Rainbow.
No, I haven't heard of that one.
Yeah, so Fiona Clark is a local Gunditjmara woman. And yeah, so you'll have to look that book up. It's a lovely story.
Okay, I will. And I'll link it in the notes for people that are listening as well. I'll keep with your bio and you just tell me if, if I'm making a mistake. You've had 25 years of experience in early years education, and you've held roles as early years educator, team leader, and now as the early childhood teacher. And recently, you've expanded your skills as an allied health assistant alongside an occupational therapist, which sounds very interesting. Sue resides in the nearby community of Camperdown with her husband, her family, which includes 3 wonderful adult children, their partners, and 2 grandchildren. You cherish spending time with them, as well as the adventure of travel and exploring new places. You stay active through walking, gardening, cycling, practicing yoga, while also enjoying downtime through art appreciation and occasional reading. Community involvement is important, and you participate in local events wherever possible. So welcome, Sue, to our podcast. And you're here because you are a finalist of one of our Educator of the Year awards. And so we are wanting to pick your brain a little bit more about your pedagogy and practice. Can I ask you, what are you doing with an occupational therapist? Because that sounds very interesting.
Yeah, so that's an allied health assistant role. So I work in a couple of different schools with school-age children. I have the goals that are set by the OT, and I spend up to 45 minutes with each of the students working on their specific goals. So I do that on a Thursday morning before I come into kinder in the afternoon. So yeah, it's been a really interesting change to what I do, and I really enjoy working with older children as well. Well, I love early years. I have really enjoyed that different aspect of learning.
It'd be really nice to see the changes and the similarities going from early childhood to primary. And I've never worked in a primary setting, but I have worked with USH, like in USH services. And I always find it like very different. I like it. I like the change, but it is very different to early childhood. And you've been doing early childhood for a long time. And so I was wondering, when you started working in the early years, what Aboriginal programs was like then compared to now, how it's changed through your time working in this space.
Changed dramatically. When I first started in a coordination role, so there was very limited resources, very limited anywhere you could go on the internet to find information. The local connections weren't very strong. And so I can remember in my coordination role a time when I contacted a friend of ours, John Clark. He's a member of the Eastern Mar Corporation, and that's newly established as well. And just to find out from John what the names of our local areas were, because that didn't even, you couldn't even find that in your community. So John was really helpful to help all of our services to then begin to acknowledge what the name of their place was. And then time progressed, we gained access to grant funding for PDs, and then we really started to, every PD that we would have, there would be Aboriginal perspective included for the educators. I did do a really early PD, I think it'd probably be 20 years ago, with Aunty Fay Muir.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that would be amazing.
And it was
Yes.
amazing in a little tiny community called Glenormiston. And that for me was a real moment of connection and starting to think this is a space that I feel right in, and that I need to learn more about, create my skills to then share what I learn with others, with peers and children. Yeah, so that was really a really wonderful experience.
And
And
Aunty Fay's now gone on, like she's got her books like Sharing,
yes,
Family, Respect, which I'm sure a lot of early learning services have. And I don't know if you have her latest one, The Always Was, Always Will Be, that she did
no,
with Sue Lawson.
yeah,
It's a really beautiful book that it goes into aspects of Aboriginal history, because I feel like it's great for children, but it's also equally as good for educators that are wanting to learn. She's such a generous person with her time and with her knowledge that what a privilege to one of your first workshops to have been with her, Sue.
yeah, absolutely. And she's just got a lovely, gentle, welcoming manner. You can ask any question and feel really comfortable. Yeah, no, it was a really great experience.
Mm.
We also did some early workshops with Young Strong Sister
Yep.
with Annette Sachs, and that was a really important time for us to learn a lot about symbols and the symbols of our area. So I think with each professional learning we've done, you pick up just that other thing that goes into your skill set and your knowledge, and you can bring that then and feel more confident to use it within your practice.
Yeah, I think Annette Sachs was one of the first people that I did a professional development with way back when as well. And now, she's had that beautiful long relationship with Aunty Dr. Sue Atkinson and her work with the possum skin pedagogy.
Yes.
So it's really nice to see how these people have contributed to the early childhood profession over such a long period of time, and
Yeah.
the work that they've had. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when we got your nomination, can I read what was said about you? Because I think it's nice to hear what other people say, just to acknowledge the work that you're doing.
Yeah.
And it says that you bring with you knowledge, practices, and growing respectful understanding of our local culture. Sue generously shares her knowledge with colleagues and services. As a result, has empowered our team to have more confidence to embed Aboriginal practices, learning, and stories into our everyday program. In everyday practice, she implements different aspects of learning from her own personal and professional development. Sue attends many local cultural events, reaches out to local elders, Koori preschool assistants, and local Indigenous groups, including Friends of Mount Lura, that enables her to continue growing her knowledge and journey. She has been a driver for sharing her knowledge with our early years management team, ensuring Aboriginal culture is reflected in our operations and governance across the organisation. She uses our online programming platform and has set up a wall that contains all of her extensive resources for our team to access. Sue naturally uses the 8 Ways of Learning framework to embed many aspects of Aboriginal culture into our program and service. Sue uses her strengths of storytelling with props to share Aboriginal history, dreamtime stories, and promote discussion in an age-appropriate way. She makes connections with Aboriginal families in our service in a respectful way and gathers resources from their country to share the traditions and language from that mob, which allows the families to feel valued and heard. When you walk through Sue's classroom, Aboriginal culture is part of the day-to-day program is play and interest-based. You can hear and see a balance of traditional, contemporary, urban, regional, and local perspectives through her holistic approach to teaching. This is displayed through art experiences, visual displays, and props, with all children have access to, also the conversations and language to children and all educators at the service. And I just thought, what a beautiful nomination to have
I
written about
know.
you.
It's been an incredible recognition,
Yep.
and it makes me feel quite emotional.
Yep.
And the team that I work with here at Cobden have been overwhelmingly accepting and the right word for it, want to learn more. They want to know different things about myself and the community. Anything that is shared is welcomed and embraced, I suppose is the right word. It's all been very, very much embraced.
Mm.
And, you know, it's it's a lovely recognition that you might inspire somebody else and help them find a path with their learning.
Well, it
With
definitely sounds like you're doing that, Sue. And I just have a few things to ask, if that's okay, that came from the nomination. And one of them is about the wall that you've created with all of your resources. Can you explain a little bit more about what does that look like?
Yeah, so we use a early years platform for all our communication with families, and in it you can create community walls that all of the educators in the service can access. So how it started was we have an amazing preschool field officers, Koori preschool officers, and they bring resources, stories, songs, and they were sharing so much of this learning and knowledge with us. And often it would be on that day in that session, and then the moment could be lost. And so I started to collect all the things they had shared and put them in a place where if you need a story about the sunrise, there's a story there. If you need a story about the kuyang, which is the eel, there's a story there. So what we're using is given to us authentically and shared by Bronwyn Ferguson is the main Koori preschool officer that has shared her work. And so I've put that all there so anyone can go in and learn more about it. Then that's grown now to any links that anyone finds, any say if we've had a podcast from yourself that someone has really resonated with, that can go there. So there's links to different things. So I guess it's kind of like a resource wall.
Yeah, and it's great to sort of collate all of that in a bit of a library for educators to have that touch point. Do families access that as
Yes.
well?
No,
Okay.
but anything we use in the program, families access. So our program is sent to families every week of what we're working on, or if we introduce something new, then that link will be sent to families. So that's probably our main way of sharing it. It can be changed, so anyone who goes in there can change it. So that's why it's mainly used by educators.
Hi, everyone. I'm just jumping in quickly to remind you all that Beck and I have a series of upcoming events and workshops all throughout Queensland where we'll be yarning about the new ELF principles, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander perspectives, and sustainability. We'll be in Toowoomba, Cairns, the Gold Coast, Brisbane, Mackay, Townsville, you name it, we'll be there, and we hope to see you all there. All right, take care, everyone. Enjoy the episode. Great. And you're using the 8 ways of learning as well as embedding Aboriginal perspectives in the environment and through topics of inquiry that children have that they're exploring. Is that right?
That's right. It's all very new, the 8 ways of learning for me.
Yes.
But when I look at it, I look at the 8 areas and I go, oh, that's where that fits, and oh, that fits there, and the things I'm doing here, that fits there, like our land links and our story sharing, our non-verbal learning, the symbols and images they're all part of our learning, but it's something that is very new, and we're just beginning on that journey.
Yeah, and look, it's a slow journey. And also in Victoria, the possum skin pedagogy is really important as well. And there's a lot of overlap. There's a lot of connection between the two pedagogies, I would say. But the main thing with the 8 ways of learning is that I use it for planning. So I sort of think, when I have an identified interest, I would go around each of those 8 ways and think, okay, well, what are the possibilities for learning here? And the reason that we do that is because, for those that are listening that aren't aware of the 8 ways of learning, is because not all children learn the same way. So if I only teach the way that I prefer, or the way that I learn, which is through storytelling and story sharing, children that learn through nonverbal learning are not going to be able to reach the learning outcomes to an equal extent as their peers who do. So it's about being more holistic in your learning styles and giving opportunities for Aboriginal children to reach the learning outcomes at an equal extent as their non-Indigenous peers. So the 8 ways of learning, I think, is really important. There's been a big emphasis on that now, particularly with the updates to the early years learning framework. So I was excited to see that you're using that, but it is a process, and it takes time to get it right, but to feel confident in your approach to using it. But if we were to walk through your classroom, what are some things that we would see that show the celebration of Aboriginal culture taking place?
Well, last year we began learning about the 6 seasons. And that's a big part of our learning. So just to say, today we're only in week 1, but today we're doing some physical activity that's grounding us. So we talked about trees and seeds, and then I talked about the shedding bark on my gum tree, and the children have now worked on painting those pieces of bark so they get to see the lines, the movement, the shapes. We're just coming out of butterfly season, and we'll head into Kuyang season. So Kuyang is the eel, so that's like a significant for me. I love learning more about the eel. And we have a really great local festival that happens biannually at Lake Bolac, and that festival is all about the Kuyang. Kelly, that I work with, my co-educator, she's amazing we work so well together at picking up on the learning styles of the children, what activities we can do, what experiences we can create. And last year when we learnt about the Kuyang, Kelly actually brought in a Kuyang from her farm out of her river just for the day for the children to see what a real Kuyang looks like. So the children learn about the migration of the Kuyang, and then there's also other things within the environment. So we work about the honeybee season, and then we look at things in the garden that changes and bring all that in. So we've made a mural. I guess I don't know if it's a tapestry or a collage, but the children created the fabric and the paint on it, and then there's the kuyangs in the river. The other animals we learn the Indigenous names for are on there as well.
Okay.
It
sounds like your curriculum's a reflection of country and community, that's really a strong part of your pedagogy in practice.
Yes, it is. And we have children from other Aboriginal backgrounds, and so we include some of their language within the program. And I guess we just try and teach to the children's capacity rather than overteach, just gently introducing the animals. We might notice that the possum there's droppings on the deck, and we'll start to talk about the kuramok, the possums that live around the kinder. The kiris, the magpies, they come in after we've had snack and look for little treasures on the ground from the children's morning tea. So there's all that incidental learning that happens within the environment that somebody who's not in here for a session may not notice.
I think that's the thing, though, is that sometimes it's so embedded that you can't, because it's not about having a big display or shining a spotlight on it, or you're not teaching about culture like it's the theme or the interest or creating these cultural corners, but it's in the rhythms and routines and your ways of being that it just sounds like it's very authentic in what you're doing.
We try and we do our acknowledgement every morning. The children sit in a circle and we acknowledge the nation's first people, and we gradually teach the children what that means, who the first people of this country were. I've used Somebody's Land by Adam Goodes as a really great story for that. And I also tell a story about colonization, but I keep it gentle and watch for the cues of the children, listen to their play after to see whether their understanding I've been clear enough with the translation. Those props stay in the room for the children to use. We worked on, when we were learning about Kurramuk, there's a great video on the NGV website with Marie Clark, who talks about her possum skin cloak and invites children to create a possum skin cloak. So we worked with the children to draw the things that were important to them, and we've sewn it together, and that's now on our couch in our story area.
That's beautiful. Can I ask, I know that you've done lots of professional development, but not lots, but it's been something that you've considered, it's been intentionally considered in what you've done in terms of developing your own professional practice. But was there any one pivotal person or moment that significantly impacted you in your approach to Aboriginal education, or a book or resource that has aided in what you're doing?
Probably in the past, I've talked a bit about Aunty Fay Muir, Bronwyn Ferguson. I'm also reading a book. I don't know if you've seen it. It's called Wisdom Man, Banjo Clark, and it's told by Camilla Chance. And that book is quite significant for me at the minute, and I haven't finished reading it. I'm reading it really slowly. I'm letting that different parts of that book sit with me so I can learn more about the history of our area and the impact of things on Aboriginal people over time. It's just a great book. Everyone should read it. That's been really inspirational. Look, there's just lots of people. I'm just a bit of a bowerbird, I think. I have little scribbled notes everywhere from things I see and I read, and I might be in a airport somewhere and I read something and I jot it down, or I might be anywhere. And so often it's probably to my detriment that I don't have a reference. Sometimes I'll read something I've scribbled and I'll go, oh, where did I actually get that from?
Yeah, you've got a nice tapestry going, it sounds like. Yeah.
And I wish I was more organised with it.
No, I often find that they say when you're not trying to learn or get an idea, that's when it comes to you. Like, it's a little bit like, it's not writer's block, but often it is, like when you're showering or driving the car, or like you're just walking down the street and you'll see something and that resonates with you, or you know, like it's not always intentionally seeking something out, that it just comes to you, these things. Yeah.
I have like my peers, like I'm not afraid to ask peers for support and resources. And my sister is a really supportive person, and also my auntie Ronnie, who's up in Mildura, so that's where my mum's country is. So we've had some trips up to see Auntie Ronnie, and that's where we're starting to really learn about our family connection to that place up in Mildura.
That's pretty special.
Yeah.
And is that something that you've always had that connection?
No. So when we were children, we didn't grow up with that connection. It wasn't until my grandfather, my mum's dad, came back to our family, and then after a very long time, we were just small children, and then we started to learn more and more about the connection we had to our heritage. So it's the Karinji people from Karinji Nation. and I've just done a trip up there with my sister for a weekend, and just to be on country and just to see the areas where our ancestors would have lived and hunted and foraged and created their canoes. There's lots of scar trees there. It's an amazing place.
That's beautiful that you've been able to find that and to share that with your sister, and to have that connection with your Auntie Ronnie to support you in that journey, I think it's
absolutely.
really special.
It is incredibly special.
Mm.
I know my mum has passed away now, but I imagine for her, she never got to do this very much, and for her it would have been a very important thing.
It's about knowing who you are and where you're from and who your family is. I think it's something that everyone needs to know, I feel.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Can I ask, in your professional practice, have you had any challenges or in implementing Aboriginal programs, or have you been faced with any resistance from colleagues or families or community that you've worked with?
No, I haven't had. No, I think all the families have been amazing. They have read the things that we're doing. They look at the things in the room. We have conversations about language. One of the families, her son, I'm sure she wouldn't mind me letting you know that he has a visual aid, and when he got his new visual aid, it was rainbow coloured, and that mum asked if we could find out the name of rainbow, because that's what she wanted him to call his visual aid. She felt that was important for him and her. It's just a really interesting connection for that family, I think.
Yeah. I think sometimes the work that you do, it resonates strongly with others. That with some more than others, but it's such important work that they feel safe to ask that they can share that sense of pride with you.
Yeah,
so that's nice to hear that.
Yeah, I find I'm impatient with progress within local government and the broader political area, just with things like acknowledgement of country. So for us in our communities, it isn't something that's been happening for a long time. And I've been constantly asking the why at every PD we have, like, what has been happening? What's this? Where's that? So now we have a cultural plan which will move things forward, I'm hoping.
It's interesting because Victoria is so progressive in terms of Aboriginal culture and support organisations, but even community mindset and allyship, I find, from non-Indigenous people compared to other states. Oh, yeah, very progressive.
Well, that's great to hear.
Yeah.
We've started a group from the referendum. So there's a group of like-minded people that I've joined that are the Southwest Reconciliation Group. So we come together and talk about the things that we'd like to see in community, how we could be a part of supporting change. Corangamite is a lot like a lot of areas within Victoria where there is a lot of things that we've lost along the way and through colonisation. So we've got a fantastic gentleman at our local historical society who is incredibly passionate about the history of the Aboriginal peoples of this area. And so he's a great source of knowledge, as well as John Clark, Brett Clark. They're really significant people. So their father was Banjo Clark, that the book I mentioned was written by.
Have you got questions about nature play, sustainability, or how to meaningfully include Aboriginal culture in your early childhood program? Call 0253 000 306 and leave a voice message for the Educator Yarns podcast. Beck Birch from Bush Kindies Australia and Jessica Staines from the Koori Curriculum will be answering your questions, offering practical advice, cultural guidance, and inspiring ideas to support your teaching and planning.
Whether you're just starting out or looking to take your program deeper, your question could shape future episodes and support other educators across the country. Dial in today at 02 53 000 306.
So it sounds like you're quite connected with, like, not even necessarily like just Aboriginal people in your community, but your community in general, and you've been able to use them as a bit of a support and a resource to do the work that you're doing. What are some ways that you've been able to foster those relationships with people in your community, these different stakeholders?
I think it's being open and going to things. Like, go to that event where you know there's going to be an acknowledgement or a welcome to country. Go and learn, go and listen. And I think listening is one of the most important things we have to do. We just have to sit and listen when people are talking and they've got this knowledge to share. I guess I probably am I like to learn slowly, and I don't have the best memory anymore for names of things. So that's what I've got my sister Barb. She's like an encyclopedia of remembering names for things. I'll go, oh, what is that? I can't remember. What is that thing? And she'll go, oh, yeah, it's this. And I'll go, oh, great. Yeah, I think you just have to get yourself out there. You have to go down that trail of, go to one thing and then leads to another, and then it leads to another and leads to another. I think we have to be active and not just sit back and wait for things to come to us.
That's really good advice, and it's about being active and not passive. what you're trying to learn. And do you have any other advice that you would give to educators that are listening that are just starting out to incorporate Aboriginal perspectives in their program?
I think you have to just find something that really resonates with you to begin with, and focus on that. Don't try to do everything at once. It might be you're really interested in the seasons, so learn about the seasons, start to introduce those. Our environments talk so much to us about our country, and if you're in a bush kinder setting, we've just started our bush kinder last year, and there's so much potential in those spaces. But I'm off track again.
No, it's fine. That's good.
But just do one thing that feels right.
Yeah.
And you'll feel confident with that. Watch what other people do. Say, when I've finished a story, I always check in and go, what did you think of that? Is there something I've missed? Is there something I could add? Was it too much? And, so always be prepared for critical reflection.
And not be afraid to get it wrong or not quite right.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, celebrate your success and share what you've learned in those success to inspire other people to give it a go and to learn from what you've learned and all that sort of stuff. I think, but being honest with yourself about that, I guess having realistic expectations that you're not going to get it perfect. There's no such thing as perfect either. But to me, it's not the outcome, it's the journey that is the richest experience. Absolutely. And your learning process. And so really, relishing that experience of learning and taking your time with that, I think is important.
And you've got to do something rather than nothing. And so just start.
Yeah. If you could change something, or if you would like to see a development in Aboriginal education within early childhood and primary settings, what would it be?
I think from what I've noticed, we do a lot of learning here at Kinder. I'm not sure how much of that then is progressed into the primary school area. I would love to see that every school has to have a cultural program, an Aboriginal perspective cultural program. And I would really love to see dedicated funding for educators, because we can have such limited budgets. Accessing professionals like yourself, artists, it can be really challenging. So there needs to be more funding.
I agree.
Targeted funding.
Yeah, totally agree. Because I can see in the early years learning framework, every second outcome is about connect with community, collaborate with community, But what you don't understand is like the Aboriginal community is a very stretched, overworked, overburdened community, and there's no dedicated role to do the role, like all of this collaboration and all of these early learning services and schools reaching out to these communities and putting the burden of education on them. Yeah. And then also not having the funds to do it and only meaning well by wanting to try and do something. And it's a vicious cycle, you know, and I think there has to be funding and also realistic expectations and potentially dedicated roles. Like there are CESO workers, really. I mean, it's great that your CESO worker is proactive in connecting with you, but many CESO workers don't, because they're stretched just servicing the primary schools that they're meant to, let alone doing anything in additional to that, which they don't really have to do. And in most states, there is no CESO worker, you know, like that's very much a Victorian thing. There are, you know, like they're similar, but not as official as what I understand the CESO workers are, like that dedicated role to do that job. So I really think there needs to be some pragmatism put forward around, funding and who is expected to partner and do this work without it being detrimental to the Aboriginal communities that really we're only wanting to support, you know. I totally agree with that. Is there anything else you wanted to share, Sue?
I think I probably touched on most of the things that I had in mind. I think part of that common misperceptions is, you know, it's not one size either. It's not one way to do something. And the learning doesn't come from a Pinterest. It comes from being in your setting, learning from your families, learning with your families, learning from your children, learning with your children and your co-educators. Like it's such a there's no silo. You have to be open to share. I think that's probably my biggest goal, is to make sure that happens and people are able to do that.
Well, it sounds like you're definitely doing that from your award nomination, talking about all the ways that you're collaborating and sharing and empowering other people and inspiring those around you to do this work. So I think for those people listening, be like Sue. That's what I
did. There was a quote from Banjo Clark's book that I think is really really good to know, and it's that it's not like a jigsaw, that at some point one day the jigsaw is complete. This isn't the case for us, I imagine, I imagine for many Aboriginal people. Like that's a big thing, that there's not an end. You don't tick off that your work is finished.
That's right. It's not a checklist that you're working your way through. And that's why I always tell people there's no such thing as cultural competency, because there's no end point of which you go, I'm an expert in that now. My journey is ended. You know, it's ongoing learning. There's always, that's a really good message to leave us with. Thanks so much, Sue, for jumping on and yarning with us, and congratulations on your nomination, because I think you're very, very deserving, and thank you for sharing your story with us.
Thank you. And I think the nomination is for our team. I wish I'd had them all here sitting, chatting as well.
Yeah, fair say, because I think it sounds like they've been really like your partner in all of this. Absolutely. You know, you're only a small team. So good on you. Good on all of you, and congratulations.
Thanks, Jessica.
Thanks for listening to today's podcast. To find out more information about the Koori curriculum and how we can best support you and your early learning service, visit www.kooricurriculum.com.